Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. During a solemn gala held in Stockholm, Polish writer Olga Tokarczuk received the Nobel Prize for Literature for the year 2018. The gold medal and a diploma were handed over by the King of Sweden, Carl XVI's Gustaf. The President of Poland, Andrzej Duda, wrote a congratulatory letter in which he emphasized the fact that this great achievement and success will take its place in the history of Polish and international literature. Tokarczuk is the fifth Polish Nobel Prize winner for literature. Today, along with Olga Tokarczuk, 13 other laureates received Nobel Prizes in economics, chemistry, physics and medicine.
The Swedish Academy would like to congratulate all of you.
As the official announcement says, the Swedish Academy gave credit to the Polish writer for her narrative imagination, which presents crossing borders as a form of life with great passion. The President of Poland, Andrzej Duda, wrote a congratulatory letter in which he emphasized the importance, beauty and the strength of the written word. The writer has been listed among the favorites of the Nobel Prize for years. Olga Tokarczuk is the fifth Polish Nobel Prize winner in literature. The Nobel Prize in Literature has been received earlier by Władysław Reymont, Henryk Sienkiewicz, Czesław Miłosz and Wisława Szymborska. Aside from fame, the Nobel Prize contains a cash prize, 3.5 million Polish zloty.
The Supreme Audit Office announced today their report and findings following an audit of one of the projects run by the Ministry of Justice. In connection with the improprieties identified in the report, the Supreme Audit Office filed a series of motions to the Attorney General's office. The opposition interprets this as evidence of a continuing conflict between Marian Banash, the president of the Supreme Audit Office, and the ruling Law and Justice Party. The Supreme Audit Office emphatically denies these allegations.
The Supreme Audit Office focused on an audit of the program of the Justice Ministry Work for Prisoners. The office announced a total of 16 motions to the Attorney General office, with half already filed and the rest in the final stages of preparation. If someone has any reasonable suspicion that anyone has a real influence as to the results of the findings of the agents of the Supreme Audit Office, they have only one option: it is going to the Attorney General. The context of time coincidence or external events coincidence have no merits in this case, because they just could not. The person responsible for the inception and implementation of the Work for Prisoners project was Patryk Jaki, back then the Deputy Minister of Justice and now an MEP, who reacted strongly to the Supreme Audit Office allegations. I am flabbergasted with those ridiculous allegations. It is obvious to me that the allegations are just a political game. As a result of the great program, the National Treasury lost nothing. The prisoners went to work and started to work for themselves. Their families have received alimony, the recurrent crime rate is declining, and state-owned companies earn more. But despite all good results, they see it as still bad. It is major nitpicking. I just do not get it, their reasoning. I simply give up. The opposition links the publication of today's report with the conflict between the Supreme Audit Office President Marian Banash and his political environment. The problem we are talking about today is that we have an internal conflict in the ruling party and someone is breaking the rule of silence. I have already pointed to the irregularities that the Supreme Audit Office presented today. There was no political will today. It is obvious that all of that is happening around Marian Banash. Firstly, we have to make public the findings of Marian Banash's report. Next, we have to bring Marian Banash in front of the State Tribunal and there will be no problem anymore. I do not understand why the Law and Justice Party doesn't want to take such steps. Politicians of the Law and Justice have been saying all along that the best solution to the crisis around the President of the Supreme Audit Office would be his resignation. However, nothing indicates that Marian Banash is going to take advantage of this option. In the report published today, the Supreme Audit Office indicated 27 cases of awarding contracts in violations of the provisions of the public procurement law for over 115 million zloty, and a dozen or so cases of lowering the amount of rent for industrial halls leased. Losses on this account may amount to 37 million zloty.
The Polish Internal Security Agency, or ABW, has prevented a terrorist attack in Poland. Officers of the agency detained a Ukrainian citizen who had recently converted to Islam. According to the ABW, the Ukrainian was planning a terrorist attack in one of the shopping malls in the city of Puławy, in the southeast of the country.
On
December 4th, the Internal Security Agency detained a Ukrainian, Maxim S., who is suspected of preparing a terrorist attack in Poland. From the evidence gathered by the officers of the ABW, the attack was to take place in one of the shopping malls in Puławy. Among the possible scenarios was an attack with a booby-trap car, explosive vest or an automatic rifle. Based on the gathered evidence, the man heard charges from the prosecutor and was sent to detention for 3 months. Maxim S., who was recently converted to Islam, was preparing the attack attack since October and was in contact with radical Muslims living in Poland.
Today, the new European Commissioner for Justice, Belgian Didier Reynders, ahead of a meeting of the EU's justice ministers, accused Poland and Hungary of backsliding further on democratic standards.
Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban this month pushed to limit the liberal dominance in the country's theaters. In Poland, the ruling party is locked in a standoff with judges critical of the judiciary overhaul the conservative government is carrying out, despite concerns by some observers in Brussels, who argue that it will undercut the court's independence. The new European Commissioner of Justice, Didier Reynders, stated that new developments in Hungary were troubling.
So I'm sure that we'll continue to work now in the Council about the two difficult cases that we have. Unfortunately, we have seen negative evolutions in the last weeks and months since the last discussions on Poland and Hungary. So at the same moment, it's important for the Commission to continue to use all the tools.
The Hungarian Minister of Justice, Judith Varga, responded by saying that the EU's attempt to put sanctions on Poland and Hungary under Article 7 will lead nowhere.
And we've been here for more than 50 months now, and this procedure leads us nowhere. It is based on false accusations, and it raises mistrust among member states. However, we will be always ready to defend Hungary, and we are prepared for today's hearing as well. Thank you very much.
Since Orban won power in 2010, his right-wing Fidesz party has rewritten Hungary's constitution. Critics also accuse Orban of having gained control of state media and businessmen close to the prime minister and the party having built empires.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programs. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Tonight the temperatures will range from -4 in Bydgoszcz and Łódź, -3 in Rzeszów and Lublin. The highest temperature will be in the area of Szczecin. At night the clearest skies will see in Olsztyn, Bydgoszcz and Łódź. The remaining part of Poland will be partly cloudy. Now let's see what will happen tomorrow in Poland. Tomorrow we'll see a lot of sun, especially in central and southeast Poland. The only cloudy skies we'll see in Gdańsk, Koszalin and Szczecin. The temperatures are going to drop in eastern Poland, and the maximum of 4 degrees we'll see in the north. Now let's see the forecast for the upcoming days. Thursday will be partly sunny in Poland. The temperatures will range from 0 to 3 degrees. On Friday we'll expect snow in western Poland. The maximum of 4 we'll see in the southwest. On Saturday the temperatures are going to rise a bit. 6 degrees we'll see in the southwest, 5 in the northwest.
Poland Daily Business Edition. The European economy is slowing down, at least in terms of Germany's GDP. Why this is happening? The question to Jerzy Bielewicz, financial analyst and writer of Gazeta Bankowa. Sir, welcome to the show and tell us why.
Thank you for your invitation. Welcome. It's quite simple. The Germany and European Union countries are export-driven, and tariffs and trade war between the US and China makes Germany and other European countries a hostage of this war, and it shows in especially industrial production in Germany.
The war is the trade war is between the United States and China. Europe is not yet dragged into it. At least the United States are not putting up tariffs against Europe. There is talk about this in the air, but the physical tariffs are not yet implemented.
Oh, there are some tariffs.
Yeah,
for example, steel and aluminium, which is a long time ago. So you don't remember that. But, for example, recently, during just before the NATO summit, President Trump announced that there would be tariffs for French cheese and champagne and wine, and $2.5 billion of tariffs.
Is it significantly reducing the trade between Europe and United States?
Yes, I think so. In general, the international trade goes down over past quarters because of not just one war, but for example, there is a skirmish between South Korea and Japan. For example, if the United States establishes barriers for steel, at the same time, Canada establishes similar barriers because they worry that all the steel would go to their country and would cause some problems on their market. And the same with Mexico. So it's like a chain reaction. In general, the trade war between US and China causes the changes in supply chains very quick. For example, the situation is not only bad in Eurozone and European Union, but also in Asia. All the PMIs for Asia, which came out a few days ago, shows that you may expect industrial recession in Asia.
Okay.
There is just one country that shows expansion in industrial sector, which is Vietnam. So there are some beneficiaries of trade war. It's Vietnam in Asia, and it seems that it's Poland in
with
Europe.
Vietnam is an easy explanation. The manufacturers that move out of China are moving into Vietnam and are producing over there. Vietnamese communists are obviously very happy about that. Why Poland is still on the bright side?
It's the same story. It's exactly the same story. The tension between Germany and the United States, France and the United States, causes that business goes to Poland. It's so simple. We have very good relation with the US. The same applies to China. So there are, we may expect some manufacturing moved from China to Poland, for example. And the numbers don't lie. They show that we have very good industrial growth still, and Germany has an industrial recession for almost a year. Quarter after quarter, the German industrial output
how
gets
is it
smaller and
possible
smaller.
that we have our economy growing while our production is very much pegged to the German manufacturing?
Because we export to other countries and we import from other countries than Germany. We still, it's our biggest trade partner. But, for example, there are two-digit increases in export from the United States from our neighbors like Czech Republic, Slovakia, Romania. We started to trade with our neighbors, which is very good. And it goes along our strategy. We'd like to build infrastructure from north to south, just to connect these countries and to be able to develop trade, relationship, industrial cooperation, energy source supplies, and it works. It works. Right now we have the situation when Eurozone countries are, we may expect even a recession in Eurozone, and on the other hand, in Central Europe, the members of the European Unions showing very good economic results. So this strategy of 3Cs initiative really works.
Well, that's good news, and we want more of this good news. Please come next time and with equally so good information. It's Jerzy Bielewicz of Gazeta Bankowa, and economical analyst was our guest, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Tomorrow we'll see a lot of sun, especially in central and southeast Poland. The only cloudy skies we'll see in Gdańsk, Koszalin and Szczecin. The temperatures are going to drop in eastern Poland, and the maximum of 4 degrees we'll see in the north. Now let's check the weather for Europe. Tomorrow the lowest temperatures we'll expect in eastern part of Europe, from 0 in Vilnius up to 3 degrees in Moscow. We'll see a lot of sun in central part of Europe, but we'll expect snow in Berlin, Bern and Scandinavia. The highest temperature we'll see in Athens, 16 degrees Celsius.
Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and welcome to Poland Daily Culture. In this series of programs, I'll be talking to Julia Gintrowska, daughter of the noted Polish songwriter and singer Przemysław Gintrowski. Julia, thank you for being with us.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure.
But before we start the interview, let's listen how Julia interpreted one of her father's well-loved songs. Julia, I guess it might be a little bit difficult to be a daughter of a legend, because since your father was a sort of legend in music, along with Kaczmarski and Łapiński, but Gintrowski, of course, is one of the trio who's extremely important. Could you tell us how he was working on the songs? Do you remember it?
Yeah, of course. I actually was with him in the studio when he recorded his last 2 records.
How did it look like?
First of all, of course, he used Atari. Start with that. It's so old computer. I still have it. It's in German because there wasn't any, Atari computers, and he used it for I don't know, for 20 years. So he had his workroom where he had his piano, his computer. Yeah. Close the door, and sometimes you only heard some strange notes. And after that, he go to the studio, and yeah, he took me with him. I actually have some episodes on these records.
Do you?
Yeah, but it's very small. But my dad really liked to use. Me and my sister were on the records. And it was for me it was fun, very fun. The funny story is that last year I was in a Polish radio and I was on a reception. And the women told me, "You are the girl who had a wheel in a shoe." And I was like, it was only one wheel and it was on the on a foot, and now you can write, and you keep your fingers up. So it was quite funny that she remembered that, because it was after, I don't know, 12 years. So that was funny that she remembered me after so many years. It was cool for me. it was very interesting. There's all the studio or the new technologies. Yeah.
And how did he work at home?
As I tell you, he had his room, and he closed the door. And
were there any people coming, for example, to your home and listening to the recordings, or he was reading the lyrics and confronting it, anything like this?
No, actually, no. He worked by himself. He enjoyed his free time. Like, he liked work alone.
I see. And tell us, what is so unique about Przemysław Gintarski's songs and his music that we still like it, even the new generation still like it until today? What is also so unique for you, dear?
Definitely the message of these songs. The funny thing is that for me it's much more easier to sing his song than like pop music or something, because it's about something and you can tell the story. And when I interpret the song, you choose two paths. You are the person, the character of the poem, or you're telling the story. So it's easier for me when you have a big emotional impact.
And you like this emotional impact, which
it's definitely. I think it's one of the most important thing.
Absolutely. And tell us, please, because we usually forget that your dad was also writing music to films, to more than 20 films. He wrote music to more than 20 films, and to such things as The Mother of Kings, or The Subs, which in Polish is a famous movie called Zmienice. Do you have your father's favorite film music?
Yes, definitely. It's from Dad music.
From a movie called Dad.
Movie. Yeah.
Once again, who is the director?
Maciej Ślesicki. So yeah, I really like it. He actually worked a lot with Maciej Ślesicki, and I think he wrote a lot of fantastic music to his movie. Yeah. So I think it's my favorite.
And do you remember any funny stories about making this music or writing his music to films? Any moment when, for example, he didn't bring something or had problems with finishing or thought that, for example, the script is boring or...
I don't have so many funny stories, because the funny thing is about the subs, because my dad go to set of the movie, TV series. As you know, the music composer
usually don't go to this.
Usually don't go because he doesn't
have any business there.
Yeah. So he, but he, all of the equipe was waiting for director tell his story about his tramway to the set. So it was quite funny. He had all the time the same journey. He all the time see something new, and everyone loved it.
So once again, to make it clear for everyone, so your dad used to come to the sets of the series, The Subs, and tell to the crew what was his way of...
No, my dad, the director.
The director, I can see. And your dad was there to listen to it as well?
Yes, that's why he came to... He was going to...
To listen to this drum, the way of the director, how he came with a drum. That's a very, very interesting thing, that your father was such a, I would say, an orchestra man if it comes to he was writing the music, he was writing the lyrics, and also he was writing the film music as well.
Yes, definitely. I think my dad is my biggest inspiration. I think he was very, very talented, more than me even, I think. he worked a lot. Because you told us about the movies and TV series, but he did a lot of music to theater also, and music programs, like music to TV programs. There was now we don't have it, but as I said, in TV there was for 20 minutes, for example, the music program where you have all the video and music to it, and there was no interview or something. It was only music.
Hopefully great music, but also theater music, film music, and also lyrics of Przemysław Gintarski will be an inspiration also for you. And thank you for watching Poland Daily Culture.
For Poland, the 19th century was a century of struggle for independence, and thus a century which for Poles did not end until the 11th of November 1918, when a new, independent Poland emerged from the ashes of the First World War. This is the story of how the 1905 revolution led, as those of 1830 and 1863 had not, to independence and of the emergence of Józef Pilsudski as the leader of a reborn Poland. For Poland, the 19th century was a century of struggle for independence, and thus a century which for Poles did not end until the 11th of November 1918, when a new, independent Poland emerged from the ashes of the First World War. This is the story of how the 1905 revolution led, as those of 1830 and 1863 had not, to independence, and of the emergence of Józef Pilsudski as the leader of a reborn Poland. Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. And we're continuing our series of looking at all things rebellious and revolutionary. We started with the 1830 revolution in Poland, the uprising. We then went on to the 1863 uprising. And now we're going to start with the 1905 revolution in Russia, which led on to a series of events, ultimately, at the end of the First World War, seeing the re-emergence of Poland as an independent country. And I'm joined in the studio by our resident expert, Dominik Szczęsny-Kostanecki. Dominik, welcome. In history, of course, it's always difficult to know where something begins and where something else ends. But I think for the purpose of today's story, we can start with the Russian Revolution of 1905, which I think gave rise to changes in the Russian Empire, which ultimately allowed the Poland to re-emerge at the end of the First World War. I mean, would you agree that's a good starting point?
Yes. We may call the 1905 revolution, both in Russia and in its Polish part, that is to say the western part of the Russian Empire, which was the so-called, let us repeat, the Congress Kingdom, or the Kingdom of Poland, which was a small entity, but the name existed. Of course, it was under the Russian rule. Other provinces, let us repeat, were under Austrian and Prussian rule. So we still have, in 1905, we have these three partitioning powers. So Russia, Prussia and Austria. But these events we are to discuss happen in Russia. And we can say that the 1905 revolution is the general for the Russians, for the Russian revolutionary movement, which is not unified. You've got different parties, but let's say the revolutionary movement, it was the general rehearsal before 1917, so the Bolshevik Revolution. At some point in 1905, Lenin said, so the leader of the Bolshevik movement, said that because at some point the Tsar Nicholas II now agreed to liberalize the system a bit, but at some point Lenin said that the war is, the struggle is not over, and we have to wait until better circumstances, that is to say, the First World War, when everything was collapsing, and the final revolution, the final attack on the Tsarism was possible.
Yes, and I think, wasn't it later that Lenin said, after the 1917 revolution, that the 1917 revolution wouldn't really have been possible without the 1905, which is sort of, in a funny sort of way, a dress rehearsal for what came later, including even the event of the sort of shooting of people at the palace in St. Petersburg, when there was this misunderstanding, and people marched on the palace.
You mean Bloody Sunday?
Bloody Sunday,
yes. Not the one in Londonderry in 1972.
No, well, exactly, yes.
It's another. No, it's the first Bloody Sunday, we may say. Okay, let us draw the context, because why 1905? I mean, things don't happen just like this.
Of course not.
I mean, it's a major event. Why 1905? In 1904, so just a year before, we've got this war between Russia and Japan. There is this a part of land next to Korea, let's say, and Manchuria, which became a promising and a very attractive land for both parties, so both for Russia and for Japan. So a rivalry started over these lands. And when Russia annexed Manchuria, Japan declared war on Russia. Everybody in St. Petersburg was laughing. So that, I mean, this little country that soon emerged from, medieval times, I mean, it will be a landslide victory. Yes. Over this little country. But it turned out that the Japanese army was well trained and scored a number of victories over the Russian antediluvian army that was, dating back to the previous times. I mean, nothing much changed after in terms of military reforms after the Crimean War. We are talking about last time. We were talking about.
But I think it's fair to say that this was actually the Japanese victory over Russia was the first time a non-European army had beaten a European army, which of course no doubt led lots of people to think, the Europeans are not invincible as we'd all suppose them to be, which probably also gave people encouragement.
That's what you said. That's a classic sentence from historical books. This is classics. But as much as it is, a classic, it is true. And of course, the news coming from the Eastern Front was received very badly in St. Petersburg, in Moscow. Besides the situation, we often say that the workers' movement was very weak in Russia. It wasn't weak. The thing is that a small percent of the population was working as workers, compared to, let's say, England or France or Germany. England and Germany, so the most industrialized societies. So out of, let's say, 30 million people inhabiting Russia, the greater Russia, let's say, so with all these, Finland, Poland, and so on, out of these 30 million, let's say 3 million were working as workers, as proper workers. So they were, the background or the basis for the revolutionary movement.
And because they'd be very much concentrated in St. Petersburg and Moscow.
St. Petersburg, Moscow, the Donbas region in Ukraine, of course Kiev, of course Odessa, European part of Russia.
And of course Warsaw, which of course at that point we have to consider as part of the Russian Empire.
We have to, unfortunately.
Yes, exactly.
As much as we don't like to do it. I mean, we have to say that.
As I was passing by the wagon, I noticed this sign. This is very interesting. It says Napoleon stayed in this chateau. When he was, it says the 21st of February 1807 to the 1st of April 1807. So Napoleon was here. So indeed, he saw it was a good place and a strategic location for his management of his invasion of Russia, because that's where they were going, I presume. How about that? Very interesting. Okay, so we're here on the pier now in Ostróda, and you'd almost think that we're somewhere by the sea, because if you don't believe me, look at the birds behind. Those are seagulls, and we're substantial 100 miles from the coast here. Not quite, maybe 75 anyway. And it feels very much like the sea. Behind me, apparently, is the entrance or the end, if you're coming from the north, to the Elblang Canal. The Elblang Canal is considered one of the great well, I'd say wonders, attractions of Poland that you want to see when you come here, and you can actually go on it as well. It runs from Elblang, which is near Gdansk, which you'll pass through if you're driving on this Route 7, the National Route 7, from Warsaw to Gdansk. We'll pass through there ourselves today. But the canal runs from Elblang to Ostróda, or from Ostróda to Elblang, depending on which way you look at it. But at any rate, that's Elblang is to the north of us. So anyway, this is one of the lakes where people come to enjoy themselves during the summer. And you can even see there's quite a good-sized runabout boat, motorized boat over here going in. Of course, during the summer, we'll see many boats on here, particularly sailboats, as I said before, because this is a very popular place. Not just here, but the Missouri in general is very popular. It's still very pretty. I mean, it's nice in a way, even though it's a bit chilly today, it's nice in a way to be here because there are not so many people. So you can we're on the pier, there's no one else here, and in a way that's kind of nice. It's also the middle of a working day as we head up, and not tourist season, as we head up to Gdansk. At any rate, this is Ostróda. You can see there's a lot of hotels, conference centers gathered around the lake, particularly over here on this side. And let's go talk to the seagulls, see if they have anything to say. The trick is to see how close you can get to them before they fly away. This is very difficult. You have to pretend you don't care at all. And you also have to hope that none of them has seen an Alfred Hitchcock movie called The Birds. Uh-oh, they're talking now. Who is this person? Are they going to let me sit down? This is the question. That was it. Well, that's as close as you can get. And that's me from Ostróda. It's time to say goodbye to my friends, say goodbye to you. Stay tuned for the next exciting episode of Poland Daily Travel as we head north on National Route number 7 to Gdansk. Stay with us. Don't be surprised if on your trip to Gdansk you decide that it looks a lot like Amsterdam. They are old-time sister cities as part of the Hanseatic League. That's the great trading league of several hundred years ago. Those tall, pointed houses mark the architecture of the time. Gdansk today is a beautiful thing to see. The colorful facades of the Long Market tempt a stroll. This Polish port city on the Baltic has been known for its amber trade for 1,000 years. There is much to say and do in Gdansk, but for the purposes of this series of episodes, we are only going to be looking at the old town and taking a stroll around and talking with a couple of friends. This is the first of many subsequent visits to Gdansk. Like Warsaw, it is full of riches and shares a place on the coast with its two sister cities, Sopot and Gdynia, home to some of the most momentous events of the 20th century. Gdansk was the place where World War II started, and it was also the place where the Solidarity movement rose and became prominent enough in the world and in Poland to change the nature of society in Europe. It's a great city, and without further delay, let's go walk about. Thanks for watching Poland Daily. My name is Will Richardson, and we appreciate it. Like us on Facebook, like us on YouTube, and please subscribe. And now, let's take a walk around Gdansk.